It's never the goal for me to balance. It's never something that I would feel confident being like, oh, I just balance it all really well. No, I don't. Welcome to the Workhorse Podcast, where we dig deep into the grit, passion, and strategy behind building a successful rural business. We're your hosts.
I'm Kendall Ballantyne, owner of Central Park Farms and marketing for farmers.
And I'm Jessica Garza, owner of Moose Valley Ranch and founder of Market in the Mountains.
This podcast is for hardworking female farmers and rural entrepreneurs who are ready to turn their dreams into thriving businesses. From deep diving business strategies that actually work to balancing farm family life and everything in between.
We're here to give you practical tools, candid insights, and a healthy dose of community support. If you're looking for women who actually cheer you on, are willing to tell you the hard truths, and that understand how much it can throw off your day when the cows get out, you're in the right spot.
This podcast is for the doers, the women who don't stay in one spot for too long, for the workhorses.
Hello, we are talking today on the number one thing that we hear in our DMs. We just decided to hit the nail on the head. This is the first podcast episode. This is the most asked question, the thing that we always are trying to figure out how to answer in like 10 seconds by a DM, and it never comes out right. So we're just going to spill the tea during the whole episode.
It's that beautiful concept of the work-life balance and how do we, quote, do it all.
I hate that term.
Same. I think it just creates such a concept of guilt and not enoughness by default.
Well, isn't that the whole thing, though, is you're on social media and you're watching someone and all you're doing is comparing and wondering, how do they do all this? How come I can't do this? There's that like implicit belief that you somehow are not enough because your story doesn't match someone's social media.
For sure. And it's never the whole story. I mean, I get that a lot of the times people are like, how do you do it all? And I have to remind them, I parent as a step parent. So I have our kids half the time and they're, one's graduated and moved out already. The other 17, he drives himself. Like that's a very different lifestyle than having young kids at home that are there in your home every single day while you're trying to navigate growing a business. It's just different. And we have to look at that kind of whole picture of somebody's life, which obviously doesn't show up on social media all the time.
Well, and I think that's like the biggest key that I wish I could like send out in a DM to someone is your life is in no way the same as mine. Like my struggles are not your struggles. My successes are not your successes. Everyone's are so different. Like you said, you have stepkids that are older. They're driving. The whole hitting a deer thing just like hit the nail on the head. Backstory. Kendall and I were ready to hop into a meeting and all of a sudden I get this text. Jagger just hit a deer. Jagger is her 17-year-old stepson who had just smoked a deer driving wherever he was going.
Thankfully, he was okay. We're not sure his car might be written off. And it literally, guys, he had just gotten this car. So it's like now we might be back to square one with him getting a car. And it was like the second we were going to be getting into a meeting. And it just wasn't a meeting just the two of us. It was a meeting with a third party. And I was quickly sending a message like, I'm sorry, you guys, I can't make this meeting. And it's just, we all have different things going on in the background that it's tough to just look at social media and be like, oh, they've all got it together.
Well, it's just yesterday that I had to text Kendall and be like, I'm so sorry, I forgot about a birthday party. And my boys are really young, not really young, but they're not driving and they're still in elementary school. And all of a sudden there was a birthday party on a Saturday and I had completely spaced it. And so there's these sort of challenges that come no matter your situation. We also, my first question back, I always want to ask, and like, I'm going to go right there is, how is your spouse supporting you? When someone asks me, how are you doing it all? The first thing, because they always say it like, not always, but there is usually this, I'm so jealous, or I'm so like, they usually preface the statement with something that's just like, I don't understand. How do you do it all? And so you kind of get the feeling that they have that comparison. And the first thing I want to fire back with is like, where's your spouse at? How is your spouse in supporting you of your business, of your dreams, your goals? Like, let's have that conversation first before you compare yourself to me, because I have a unicorn. I say that, he's obviously not. You have a unicorn too.
Yeah. I've had a non-unicorn previously, so I know how different it is. I have been ambitious forever. This is the first time I've been an entrepreneur, but I used to be really high-level executive in my previous job, and I had the opposite of a unicorn, an unsupportive spouse previously, and now I have a really supportive spouse, and it is an absolute game changer on what I am able to accomplish in the relationship that I'm in now versus what I was in previously. Jess and I sat down and we were, recording some intros and some podcast stuff that we were doing. And CJ, Jess's spouse, came in with warmed up prime rib roast on a plate. And then all of a sudden, Jay came in, my husband, with some soup and things like that. Like they were just checking in to make sure that, we were nourishing ourselves because we had such a big work day. And those kinds of things, it meant we got to eat without needing to stop and then try to start back up again. And those are just like those little things that make it so that we can be more productive, that we're kind of leaning into each other with our spouses, being able to get more stuff done.
I think that it says so much about them and our relationship that we can just have this open sort of discourse about like, these are my goals. And I'm a very driven, motivated, I set goals, I want to hit them. And for me to be able to talk to my husband and say, like, this is where my drive is pulling me, and him to be like, get it, girl, get it.
Yeah.
Like, what do you need from me? How can I help? We still, though, I don't know about you, I have a hard time because he does not have that drive. Like, he doesn't come to me and say, I want to start my own business. I want to develop this arm of something, or I want to do whatever. He loves his job, loves his career. Never, like, he wants to work it till he retires. He doesn't want me to, what is it they say on social media when they're like,
retire your husband?
Yes. I offered that. I was like, honey, if I build this, like, can I retire you? And he was like, absolutely not. In no way, shape, or form do I want to come work with you full time, nor do I want to give up like the job that I love. A very like typical work experience. And it's hard for me because I'm like, how do you not want to do this? How do you not? And he's like, I just don't.
Yeah. And that is like, on the flip side, Jay and I are full-time together. So that is a little bit different. But I think it's a nice check and balance for the guys too. One thing that I know from knowing you as well as I do that CJ does the same thing as Jay for me, is he sometimes that check and balance. Like when we got this idea to do the podcast, both of us went to our significant others, not that we needed permission to create a podcast, but it was like, are we crazy to add this to our plates that are already really full? And both of us went to the guys, and then both of us got the same answer, that we should outsource some of what this podcast looks like, even though there's an expense to that. Jay right away was like, you need to pay that money to do that outsourcing, because then, yes, you do have the bandwidth to take this on without it creating such a time suck, that it was like, that felt like really worthwhile investment for us to be able to outsource some of those things, which is part of this topic about productivity and getting things done and how we're able to not do it all, but do a little bit more around our business while still trying to balance some family life stuff.
Well, and balance, it never happens. It's never the goal for me to balance. It's never something that I would feel confident being like, oh, I just balance it all really well. No, I don't. Like, the idea that there's going to be some sort of magical point in your entrepreneurial life where your family, your work, your business, whatever it is, like all intersects at this perfect spot where all the balls are in the air and you're so happy all the time. Like, I don't believe that's attainable. And people can disagree all they want, but that's never been my experience. And it's not what I believe is possible. For me, it's about focusing on what needs to be done and doing it to the best of my abilities at that time. And it's a constant reprioritization over what needs to be done, what has to be done, and what do I want to get done, funneling every decision through that, and then just doing it the best that I can.
100%. And I'm saying that as I was supposed to be leaving for a road trip at exactly this moment for my holidays with Jay. And we made a last minute decision that, hey, we were going to rework some things so that I could leave a little bit later and get some of this done in the morning, so that when I am away, I don't need to do some of this. So it's that constant balancing of what my day-to-day expectations are of myself, what my family is going to need. There's times where what I think I'm going to be doing blows all apart because Jagger hit a deer. He needs some extra help with some homework, whatever it is. He's got a game when it's, rugby or football season. That means a little bit less work in the afternoons for me so that I can make sure that I'm there for him. And how do I make sure that the time that I am spending in my business is as productive as possible? So Jess, do you have anything that you kind of like focus on when it comes to productivity?
I was raised in a household. So my dad was an entrepreneur, owned his own business, still does. I grew up hearing, never start your own business. You're just going to purchase yourself a minimum wage paying job. And obviously that wasn't true for him. So I think it's so funny that that's his perspective on things. And so growing up with him there and always working and then starting my business on their property, I always have to like run a lot through my dad, sort of my parents, but mostly my dad, honestly. And he every morning will ask, what's the crisis? Like if I'm calling him and I'm like, hey, dad, I need to go over a couple things with you, or just checking in by text. He doesn't text a lot, let's be real. But if I zip up there to like have coffee with him and kind of debrief about what my day looks like, he's always like, well, what's the crisis today? And that's been really alternatively like frustrating and helpful because when you hear that, you're like, okay, we've got good weather. I've got to get the dirt moved for the geodome today. It's dry enough. We can do that. I've got the help I need and the equipment is not broken that I need today. So that becomes the crisis that has to get done. And then everything else just kind of like goes by the wayside. And so I guess that's probably my default is like, what's the crisis? What's the have to for whatever multitude of reasons? And that's like the downfall, right, of starting a business on property. I don't own the main ranch. I own Moose Valley Ranch, but my parents hold the property. And so at the end of the day, anything I do over there that changes the property, I have to approve through them. So there's always like extra layers of clearance. And it really is that because I stack so many things on top of it, it's putting out fires constantly.
And I think in agricultural space and agricultural type businesses, it's so easy to fall into the concept of there's always something important that needs to be done on the farm. And then all of those things get our priorities. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be out there feeding your animals and caring for your lives. I'm a livestock producer. Obviously, that has to be a priority for me. But I found that in seasons of my business, sometimes I would get so wrapped up in there's like always a job out on the farm that I stopped doing some of the important stuff on the business end of things, where it was all of a sudden my accounting was, or like my bookkeeping was getting backed up because suddenly I was spending so much time, building things out on the farm and, kind of expanding on that. And Central Park Farms ended up becoming a little bit of a runaway freight train on me because I didn't have some of that back end stuff figured out. So suddenly we were killing it out on the farm and everything was going really good. But I was so stressed out on the administrative end of things. And I felt like so many things were falling and dropping. And I was like, it was a lot. And when I think about it now, had I spent a little bit of time getting some of those back-end organization pieces in sooner, I mean, I'm 10 years in now. So I've been doing this for a while. And I would say probably year 3, year 4, oh man, was that stressful. And it takes so much of your mind space dealing with knowing those things aren't getting handled, that if you would break up some of those tasks and figure out, find little pockets in your calendar, a loose time block, perhaps. That's kind of a joke that Jess and I always say is like this loose time block, because honestly, I can't time block out my calendar in perfection because something always happens on the farm. But if I can figure out, say, Monday mornings, I'm going to be sending newsletters. I'm going to be doing some bookkeeping, a few different tasks that I try to make an appointment for and treat it like a doctor's appointment, get those things done. It means that my mind is so much more clear that I can work much more productively.
Well, and I think this is so important to remember for the people that are sending those sorts of DMs, wondering how it's done. You're not seeing the back end. You're not seeing the frantic phone calls to our husbands, like scrambling because I one time triple booked myself. I had too many calendars between work, ranch, home, and I triple booked myself in those sort of scrambling moments. Those don't make it on social media. Like, I don't want my clients to ever feel like I didn't give them the priorities that they like. That's not their problem to know that I triple booked myself. It's my problem to handle it and give them the best service that I can. And so that's not something I'm going to go talk about in my stories. I may joke about it later or just like give my husband a shout out, but like, you're never truly going to see those moments where someone's absolutely in the thick of it and really struggling, or like you're saying with your bookkeeping, getting behind on that and that pit in your how do you even try to articulate that on social media? Like, I've woken up 3 nights in a row at 2 a.m. because I know my books are out of control.
For sure. And when you don't set some of those things up, it's so easy for it to happen. And it's this concept of like the farm was growing really fast, which we needed. Let's be honest. We needed the farm to grow fast. I farm full time. It needed to happen. At that point, I didn't have my corporate career anymore. So the farm had to grow at a good pace. I also had an employee at the time. So I had payroll and things like that. I couldn't take my foot off the gas. But I think if I had maybe been a little bit more aware of some of that back-end organization stuff earlier on, I ended up outsourcing and hiring somebody to come in and help me get things under control, which helped massively. I brought in a few different people to help. That outsourcing piece was so important to our business. And then once I got those things in place, it was so much easier to keep them up so that I was able to really process through the work that needed to be done on my business. That was really important, especially for me. I have ADHD. So for me, my brain being neurodivergent doesn't work the same as everybody else's. So sometimes it's hard for me to bounce between tasks that I would normally be doing. So having some of those procedures in place was really a game changer for me.
Yeah, I think if you're talking through strategies that we both share in common that have worked successfully for both of us to help kind of keep the stitching together, for lack of a better word, is that loose time blocking, outsourcing when it becomes possible. And don't get me wrong, there was a point in the beginning where it was not financially feasible to outsource, and you just have to embrace the suck. There's just no other, there's no money there to get help. The other thing is not knowing where to turn, or there's nothing worse than investing in help that in the end doesn't actually do anything or makes it harder on you. Then you're even more reluctant to get help. So you've got a lot of different things. And I do love technology has come so far when you think about running a business, how my dad used to handle cold calling on marketing and client management stuff. For him, it was an Excel spreadsheet and maybe notes in a notepad. I remember it was a big deal when he got a bag phone in his truck because he could call when he was on the road instead of just like at the hotel or at the house. He was a traveling territorial sales guy. But you look now at the resources we have at our fingertips, and we both use help for our newsletters. We both have client management software. We both have websites with automations in them. Even our group coaching community is in an app that helps us notify members streamlined in a way. You know, we make one event and it tings out to everyone and lets them know that an event has been added. They can RSVP themselves. They get the link themselves. Like, it helps us keep the wheels together. And there's a lot of different, but that didn't come all at once. And I think we had the luxury of...
I started laughing because I'm like, that didn't come all at once at all. That was a really slow process. But now that it's set up, I wish I had done it sooner.
Oh, 100%. 100%. If there was something I could have done sooner or wish I would have done sooner in my business, it was ask for help, finding help.
Yeah. And whether that help is a real live person or whether that help was sitting down and figuring out or asking a friend, like, are you using a program that makes this easier? How are you managing X, Y, and Z? I mean, Jess gave me probably one of the best hacks I have ever. And like, I'm almost embarrassed that I wasn't doing it before. We were shopping.
You were going to do this.
We were shopping at Hobby Lobby. Sorry, I'm Canadian. We don't have Hobby Lobbies. We were in Hobby Lobby and Jess was picking something up for one of her in-person events that she does at the ranch. And she got her receipt and she stopped and there was like a couple people behind her in the lineup, and I'm a Canadian. So like that gives me heart palpitations that we are going to unintentionally hold somebody up in line. And she, grabbed her phone and I was like, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, I'm just taking a receipt and uploading it to Quickbooks. I was like, oh, we should just move over here to do it. And she's like, it just takes a second. She took the picture. And then when we walked away, I was like, hey, I need to know more about what that was. she takes the photo of the expense receipt while she's still at the register. Honestly, it does only take 2 seconds because now I do it and it doesn't even make me feel awkward. It takes 2 seconds. It's uploaded and it's inside your QuickBooks. Then when you have your bank statements all going automatically in, like I have my bank account attached to my QuickBooks, so it's automatically pulling in my banking information and each transaction, and then the receipt is attempting to auto match itself in QuickBooks. It makes bookkeeping so much easier, and I have a bookkeeper and I still do that, but it's just a game changer. Getting into that mindset, Jay now takes pictures. He doesn't upload them directly into QuickBooks. He texts them to me. But I mean, attempting to organize receipts for Jay is like trying to brush your teeth while eating Oreo cookies. It is a hot mess. Our bookkeeper, Lexi, would hear his truck roll in the driveway and would run out to his truck. Thankfully, our bookkeeper works in-house. She would run out to the truck and like dive through his truck. She had permission to go through glove boxes and everything. She'd be picking receipts up off the floor of his truck as soon as she heard, because she knew if it got away from him, they were going to be all stepped on with, farm boots and everything else. So now Jay is even in a habit. He takes the picture and he texts it to me. Our staff do the same thing. So like if they're fueling up a farm truck, I get a text message with the receipt and I immediately go and upload it into QuickBooks. I stop what I'm doing to do it because it's absolutely worth on the back end. It's so much more efficient for our books.
What would it feel like? I mean, I just give yourself a minute, because I know for me that first year that I did this, I got to the end of the year. So in the US, tax season, it ends December 31st. And there's usually that mad scramble between December and March when you've got to go back and like organize all your receipts, find them all, categorize them, put them in the little staple. I mean, my mom to this day still does it, right? Like she's got her coordinating file folders and all of her receipts and then a handwritten template. Then she types up in a calculator. No way am I doing that. No way am I even able to find half of what I need to find. So the first year where I could just be like, oh, I'm watching my mom scramble. I'm at the kitchen table having family dinner and she's in like, I got to do my taxes. And she's like, well, when are you doing your taxes? And I'm like, I already did it.
Yeah. And then I email I've got the QuickBooks online email address. So every supplier invoice that comes in, like I opened a second email address. So we have, our admin at centralparkfarms.com. So all of the stuff goes over there from all of our suppliers. So it stays separate and I don't miss anything. And as soon as I'm dealing with that, I open it. If it's got an attachment with an invoice to it, I email it over to QuickBooks and it auto pulls the attachment and sticks it into QuickBooks. I'm like, it's just magic. It's magic. When people tell me that they're still, like my father-in-law runs really big companies and he still uses one of those big accounting books, like with the ledgers, and he's handwriting it in pencil. I'm like, get out of here. I can't even imagine that. But now that I do this system with QuickBooks, it's just been such a game changer. It makes it so that I'm so much more productive. We're not losing money because we're losing expense receipts. It's all right there.
But when and I know this because my parents consistently judge my business decisions. Let's just be upfront about that. I love them, but they do not understand the way that my business runs, the way that my marketing runs, the way that my backend runs. They don't understand any of it. So I get a lot of judgment for that. And what I have to understand is that they didn't have to dedicate the time to social media that I do because they didn't have to market their businesses the same way that I do. And so there's this trade-off. They can be penciling things in and still running Excel spreadsheets because they're not worried about content creation or recording videos or editing reels. Like they're not handling any of that. So if you're in a season where you're like, I can't switch my process, this is how I do it, and you're still making money in your business, it's not like it's wrong. Like there's a million different ways to skin a cat here, and it doesn't matter how you're doing it if it works. But if you're coming in and you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I just don't understand how they have it all together, understand that we've prioritized social media because that's how marketing works in our businesses. And in order to do that, we've adopted some of these behind the scenes systems, the loose time blocking, the QuickBooks, the CRMs, even like organizing our reel ideas and getting quicker at locating like audio, coming up with ideas and then jotting it down and not losing it. So that when you have the time and the space to create reels, you're not sitting there going like, I'm scrolling to find audio that works. You've like already got it. Is a different sort of mindset. And I just don't want anyone to feel bad about how you're doing it. There's no wrong way. But if you're feeling like I need to change something, this goes back though to the community piece, right? You wouldn't have heard about the receipt idea or seen it actually in action, which, like, welcome to America, where we don't really feel bad for inconveniencing someone for a couple seconds.
I was like, oh my gosh, they're waiting for a second move.
She was straight panicking at the Hobby Lobby checkout stand. And I'm just like, they'll be fine. There is no one here. You don't go to Hobby Lobby if you're in an emergency. There is no one here that needs to get out of the checkout line 2.7 seconds faster. They can wait.
My Canadian was creeping out.
Oh, so bad. So those are things, though, that you don't, if you're not having these conversations with other businesswomen, if you are stuck in a silo at home with a baby on your hip, cows to make sure you fed, and at the end of the day, you haven't talked to any adult and you're still trying to figure out how to, like, start a business, run a business, scale your business, and you aren't having these sort of conversations, you're missing out on so much. And that's why we want you here and we want you in our community, because these little tips and tricks, I know we both got the loose time blocking from Natalie and took it, made it our own, made it work for us. The receipt QuickBooks, passing that on to you, like, just learning from the candle place I buy all my candles and my bath bombs from. It was a 2-minute conversation with her because I had connected with her. And I don't even know what we were asking about, but she goes, girl, you don't need a fancy label printer. I think I was asking her about, like, a heat, what do they call those? Like a heat laser printer thing.
Yeah.
Like the expensive ones. And she goes, you can just buy, and she rattled off the label size that I needed from Staples. And she goes, just put it through your printer. And then you have, like, a sticky sided for mailers.
Yeah.
I was going to spend hundreds of dollars on something that I use mainly twice a year. Like, the big one is shipping out boxes for market and then shipping any merchandise or anything like that. And then our Christmas guides that go out, our physical Christmas guides. I didn't need a $500 setup or whatever it was going to be. I just needed to know that you could find the exact label that worked with the pirate shipping service that I use to print, so I could slap it on the top of the box without having to sit there with my tape and, like, pull the tape out and push the tape down and do another strip. I mean, that's all it took, but it was a conversation with another entrepreneur.
Yeah. And honestly, like, that's been a game changer for me. Even when I mean, I have a team now, which is different, but even my team, I have secured some of my best staff through relationships with other women in business in my community, where, I've called up Megan and I'm like, that's how I got my bookkeeper. Called up Megan, I needed a bookkeeper. She was like, why don't you reach out to this woman? She's doing it. She's really good. Then I ended up with a bookkeeper who fundamentally changed the way my business operates. She's not with us anymore, only because she decided she didn't want to be self-employed anymore. And she was working for a bunch of different independents. She got this killer job offer I could not match. It was so good, and I'm so happy for her. But she ended up going back to being employed by somebody else. But she fundamentally changed the way our business operates. And I could only find her through relationships that I had built in community that I was in with other women in business. And that goes to some of the outsourcing that we do, whether it's somebody that's in-house that's working for you or whether you're bringing in somebody part-time. A lot of those relationships have been built because I see some other woman who is not showing the mess in the back end, who's showing, the business front end, but that I feel like maybe is operating in a way that we are, is maybe some steps ahead of us. A lot of great people have come through me that have been maybe a few steps behind me in their business journey, maybe less years, but they have some new take on how to do things, because it's really easy for us to get stuck in the way. Like 10 years in, when we bring in staff, I'm like, tell me if you see something in this business that could work better. I'm not doing all the roles within the company anymore. So when we've got somebody packing orders for us now, I say to those women, I'm like, if you see something in this business that could be done better or different or faster, you let me know. And it's capitalizing on the experience of others. And a lot of that for me, especially at the beginning when we didn't have staff, was outsourcing. And I know, Jess, you outsource some stuff. What is in your business right now? What are you outsourcing?
My favorite thing to outsource is the house cleaning.
I just about spat my coffee out. I took a sip of coffee because that was me too. That was my favorite thing to outsource.
It's honestly I get zero joy or satisfaction in cleaning, mostly because we live on the ranch. There is 1,200 acres of dirt that gets carried in my little boy's pockets every time they walk through the door and forget to take their boots off. Fingerprints, I mean, just the whole slew of things. And I finally got to the point where it was taking so much time for me to clean. I got zero joy or satisfaction out of it. And it's a repetitive task that never ends. Quite frankly, if there was a laundry service close enough to me, we live really far out. There is not a laundry service that's feasible. I would outsource that in a heartbeat. But it was letting go of that need to feel like I am doing something wrong if I don't serve my family in the way that it shows up as me doing housework. Because in my head, I had a mom. That's what she did. She always kept a very clean house. She was the one in charge of that. And I kind of had to like get over this hurdle of like, no, I'm the mom. I'm supposed to be the one cleaning the toilets. No, I'm the mom that now makes enough money and has prioritized that expense at the sacrifice of other things to have the house cleaned because I hate cleaning little boy toilets.
No, it's true. And it's one of the easiest things to outsource. When we talk about outsourcing, a lot of times it's like, I want to get a virtual assistant and I want to do all these things. And that comes at great expense. But also, it's so much more challenging to outsource because you really need to find somebody that's a very good connection to your business, your needs, your working style. I can be hard to work with somebody remotely versus in-house. Jess is laughing because this has been a conversation that we've had a number of times. I do so much better. And I think it's because like we're at a staff of 10 now. Those people work with me in-house. So I'm just really used to working that way with people. That remote working when I'm outsourcing things tends to be a bit trickier with the way that I work best. And I know that. So now I, try to find other things that I can outsource versus a virtual assistant. But things like childcare, house cleaning, some of those kinds of things to free up, even if you have a housekeeper that comes every other week for a few hours and taking that time that you would normally be doing that and working on some of the other things that will get you more time. Like, if what you need in your life is some time to just sit and relax or spend time with your family, awesome. Use it that way. If you are trying to find more pockets of time in your calendar, I would recommend investing that saved time into a task within your business that will create more time. People talk to me a lot about, you spend so much time on social media and you do all of this. First of all, I create before I consume, which helps. But also being able to find some of those outsourced things like house cleaning allowed me time to focus on marketing. And because I focused on marketing, I was able to position our sales and our company we used to go to 4 farmers markets a week. We now go to none. But when I started to implement this strategy, we went from 4 farmers markets a week to 2. That is, for those of you who attend farmers markets, that is a massive time savings. By the time you pack up, you drive there, set up, be there for 4 hours, break down, come home, unpack, like it's an entire day. So I cut 2 days worth of work out of our business and had higher sales than when we were going to 4 markets a week because I was able to find some pockets of time by outsourcing the jobs that I didn't like in my life. My sales are higher. My actual physical work is lower, which gives me more time to do things like marketing, which now we're going to no farmers markets.
Well, and I think there's this sort of message on social media that VAs are very sexy right now, that the whole bench shutdown is making like bookkeeping a hot topic. There's a lot of this that can create this feeling like you need to do that. And there's sometimes where the first outsourcing being something like a minimal training needed task is in housekeeping. Like if you hire a housekeeping company, you don't have to go show them how to clean the toilets. You just have to, I filled out a checklist that said I wanted this, and this done. Go. I didn't have to do anything else. I think there's this misconception that you're going to immediately outsource someone like a VA or a bookkeeper or a remote position, graphic designer, whatever it is. And you're just going to be able to like miraculously open your brain and they're going to know exactly what you need and they're going to take off running. No, it doesn't happen that way. At least that's not been my experience. It's taken a lot of work. You have to set up new systems. You have to figure out how to communicate. They have to have the logins they need. They need to know about your business. They need to know how you like things done. If they're working on your website and you're having someone redo the copy, you don't want it to sound like it didn't come from you. So now they have to learn how you talk. It is a massive hurdle, just like starting a podcast. We were just talking about this, that the initial push to create something like that or to create more pockets of time in your life is not easy. And I know I resisted it really hard when it came to client management for wedding customers. I was like, nope, I'm fine with emails. I'm handling it just fine, writing it down in my calendar, sending out invoices by hand. Like, I don't have the time to go in and set up workflows and template emails and doing all this other stuff. And I fought it so much longer than I should have. And then I finally bit the bullet and it sucked so hard. I was in the thick of it for so long, so frustrated trying to set up the system. And then the first client onboarded, selected their package, and my bank account went ka-ching and I didn't touch it. And all I could think of was, why did I wait so long?
I feel like that's the story of my business. Why did I wait so long to do this? When I actually sat down and focused on it and did it, it just made things so much easier. It's all of those types of things for me. And I mean, I even outsourced at the beginning, and I know, Jess, you outsourced to the same person, Natalie. I was so disorganized during that period where it was like a runaway freight train. And Natalie came in and she set up Google Drive for me. She set up some of those automations for me. And it was just like one thing off my plate. And when I knew how to handle certain things, if I knew where certain documents went, if I knew how to give myself every Monday morning, I'm going to handle these types of administrative tasks. Once I had some of those strategies and kind of standard operating procedures in place, it made it so much easier for me in the long run. And that was an outsource. And that was an outsource because, I could have sat on Google and figured out how to do it. I could have read 8 million articles by a bunch of different experts, all giving me different ideas of things that I could do. But I needed time. Like, I didn't have the time to be able to do that. So for me, trading some of my money for that time freedom to be able to have somebody come in and help me was a game changer. But don't fool yourself. In the beginning, when I didn't have the availability of any extra capital, any extra money to be able to put into anything, because I made a really big shift when I started. I had a corporate career when I started farming. When I quit my corporate career, I'll be honest, I probably quit earlier than I should have, or a little bit more on the whim than I should have. So I didn't have a lot of extra money to be able to do that. And at that time, my kids are grown now, but at that time, they definitely weren't. I had my niece and my nephew living with me full time. So at that point, I did have full-time kids living in my house and all the additional things that come along with having kids who live with you who aren't biologically your kids. So there was some extra dynamics in that concept that took mental capacity for me. And at that point, it was 11 o'clock at night that I was doing some of these tasks. It was, if I don't set up some of the time to do this, this is going to drag on so much longer and I'm going to get so much more behind that this is not going to be a long-term sustainable way of running this business. I need to find the time, and I didn't have the money to outsource. So that looked like 11 o'clock at night after the kids had gone to bed, after, Jay was sitting on the couch watching a show and I was, on my laptop trying to get some of these things in place. So if you are at a point in your business where outsourcing is not an option, and I mean, outsourcing could also be sharing with your sister and she takes your kids one time and you take the kids the next time to get those little pockets. But if that's just not an option for you, I hear you. I have been there. Please know that if you can find some of those little ways to sneak in some of this work, it will help you free up more time later.
Don't shoot yourself in the foot here. You don't have to eat the elephant in one bite. You don't have to go back and fix everything that maybe isn't currently working. When I started the wedding client management software, I didn't go back to every client that was coming up that had already been used to getting my emailed invoices, that was already communicating with me in a certain way. I didn't go back and onboard them and, push them into this new system. I just said, this is where I'm at today. I'm starting here. Going forward, any new inquiries come in through the system and walk the system. I didn't try to untangle all of the mess. Same thing with your photos. If you have like branding photos hidden all over the place on your desktop, in your emails, or just photo albums, wherever, and that feels really overwhelming to try to organize those, stop. Don't. Like literally don't. Open up a new Google folder, create something. When you get your next photo album, make it a point to drop it in there. That's it.
You mean
Start
like
where
my
you
Z
are.
folder?
Oh, the 2021 archive. Yeah, the archive folder.
Yeah. I got really overwhelmed with my inbox back then. And one of the people I had outsourced to, she's like, put every single email in a Z folder with the date on it, meaning you create a folder in your inbox, you call it Z, that way it syncs to the bottom, Z, and the date, and take every single email in your inbox. I mean, I went back and looked at the last week's worth of emails that were unread just to make sure there was nothing super current. And I dumped it in there because I'm telling you, if somebody hasn't heard back from you and it's been 3 weeks and your inbox is that out of control, which mine was at that point, drop it in a Z folder, start fresh, because you're not going to get back there. If you're so tight on time that you can't get back into those emails anyways, all it's doing is paralyzing you from keeping your inbox clear moving forward. And sometimes the best we can do is better moving forward.
I think that's so important to just continue to drive and to recognize, to glean those little nuggets where you can, to help you shift and to scale at your own pace. Your story is not the same as our story. Your story is not going to play out the same way any other story is on social media. I still work full-time away from the farm. Outsourcing to me has been training my husband to take a photo of the sunrise with a coffee cup and send it to me when I'm already at work so that I can share it on social media. It's absolutely true. There is a coffee cup enjoying the sunrise. It's not necessarily me sitting there, but he does that for me because he knows that I got up at 4 to be at work by 6 and I don't have something current to share. So he takes 2 seconds, snaps a photo of his coffee and sends it to me, and I share that. You're still getting the ranch in the background. You're still enjoying the same view that I get to do on Saturdays and Sundays, but I'm not actually sitting there. And that's been an outsource for me too, because I still work off the ranch. And it's just a different story. And we talk about this a lot too within the Workhorse Collective, which is like our monthly group coaching membership we have with other women, rural women entrepreneurs, is these sort of little hacks, little tricks. It's the smallest thing, and all of a sudden you start to take pressure off you and you feel so much better.
Yeah, we've got lots of sessions. So as we've been talking today, if you are interested in joining our signature group coaching program, you can get instant access to different workshops on this exact topic, the deep dive, how we've organized our backend systems, what programs we use, the tech stack we use. We even have guest coaching sessions with my bookkeeper, with Natalie, who did our time blocking. There's a lot of great resources inside that community all ready to go so that you can dive in. And if that is your plan in 2025 and you want to make sure that you are getting this year started in a way that really gets you set up for a little bit more organized, a little bit more time availability so that you can work on your business and reach the goals that you want to, we really recommend coming and joining us. It's $47 a month. You get instant access mixed with live coaching sessions. We would love to be in community with you in that space.
There's so much to be learned from spending time with other women entrepreneurs. And if that's not feasible for you right now, we totally understand making those choices in your finances that allow you to sleep the best at night. But you can hit subscribe to the podcast, and we're going to be coming back with so much more behind the scenes, rural women entrepreneurs, how we're making it work on the farm, off the farm, with the farm animals and the farm kids. And we just want to share with you. So if you could hit subscribe, if you enjoyed the episode, go ahead and leave us a review.
Have a great day, everyone. Thank you for listening to this episode. We know there are only so many hours in the day, so we're honored you choose to spend some of your time with us. If you're one of the many rural women entrepreneurs who are struggling to find true community and step-by-step support that actually moves the needle in your business, join our signature group coaching program, the Workhorse Collective. You can find more information in the show notes of today's episode.
Together, we've set out to support and connect with women in rural business. If you found this episode valuable, we'd love it if you'd share with another woman in your circle. It would also be incredibly helpful if you would take a moment to leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes, and we'll catch you next time on the Workhorse Podcast.